Wait a minute, that's 1, 2, 3. Oh no, I've got a mistake. There can't be this many pockets, no!
I'm the Abandoned Hero, where I do things wrong so you don't have to. The following video tracks the MISTA Guido cosplay progress based on Jojo's Bizarre Adventure Vento Arreo. However, this tutorial is geared to show generalized techniques applicable for any cosplay needs that demand front and back pocket fabrication. Step 1. Refer to the previous patterning video in order to take on sequential progress. You will be needing the fabric panels cut and ready. The only caveat to this is that you will need an additional fabric allowance at the top of the front panels in order to retain the general fabric continuity. Step 2. This video will cover the visible top access pocket style, similar to standard denim jeans, versus side access flat front style pockets, typically seen in more formal attire like Docker slacks. Step 3. Establish the waistband by measuring down from either the front panel line indicating the sewing allowance by the desired belt width. Generally this requires 2.5 inches but will be determined by your specific needs for the belt width. Step 5. Rough in the top axis pocket shape by taking measurements of your hand and adding at least 1/2 inch to that. It should look like a rectangle with one rounded corner. Remember that mirroring both panels are important, so making permanent changes entails that you do the same on the other side. Step 6. Cut out that roughed in pocket shape, mirror flip, then trace on the opposite corresponding panel on the wrong side so the pencil markings don't show up. Step 7. Fabricating pockets begin by measuring out how deep you want the pockets to be while taking into account the curve of the pocket cutout. Tight-fitting bottoms may dictate that a deeper pocket is needed so you can retain normal leg movements without binding right at the hip joint. I opted for deeper pockets determined by the size of my phone. My fabric choice and pockets were chosen on the basis of retaining best performance when washing my cosplays through repeated use. Seeing as this zebra print fabric is white, I opted for the blues, if not white, because blue has less detrimental effects when washed with white colors, as opposed to undesirable reds, yellows, greens, browns, or blacks that can bleed, which ruins the piece of clothing. Be aware that clothing intended for water use may appear to be semi-transparent, so choose a pocket fabric that will not disturb the color consistency that may make it look undesirable. Once again, cutting out the pocket panels uses the same standard of sewing allowance, so generally leave a bigger fabric panel size rather than one that's just right, because when sewn together, it may be too small to be of any use. Hiya! In color correcting for photos and certain white enhancer detergents, adding light shades of blue can counter yellowish light sources or more commonly found stains on white fabric. Step 8. Use scissors to cut out your desired pocket panels plus the additional sewing allowance on the edges. Step 9. Attach the pockets to the newly separated front panels. This requires understanding of closing off raw edges. This will be done by setting up your sewing machine for the basic straight stitch and standard sewing foot, placing the outer side edge of the pocket curve against the outside of the pocket panel. Step 10. Flip the pocket to the interior of the front panel, simulating what it will resemble in the final product. Sew along the curved line of the pocket cutout, which should make the two lay flat. Step 11. Repeating the steps are the same for the corresponding pocket panel that literally lays closest against your leg. For my case, I utilized 2 sections of scrap fabric lying around that were joined by making a Tetris-like panel on the rectangle sections. Why fabric scraps, you ask? Because I'm cheap and don't want to make any more smaller bits of scrap fabric. Closing off raw edges are done by joining 2 raw edges together, folding onto itself, then sewing the raw edges shut, unlike other parts of my life that lack any kind of real closure. Step 12. Joining the pocket panels are the same process of closing off the raw edges that have been utilized up until this point. Join the 2 outer pocket sides together, sew along that perimeter, leaving about 1/4 inch away from the raw edge, flipping the right side out, then sewing the raw edge shut. Take note that when approaching the 90-degree corners of the pocket, leave a sewing gap away from the corner in order to avoid bulging at the corner that is too thick to close off with your sewing machine. Step 13. Back pockets start by marking out the cuts, first by pencil, then roughly 1/2 inch on each end marked with a V. These will be the points where the fabric gets cut, folded back, and gets closed off by the pocket liners on the interior side. Copy the marks by placing pins indicating where they match for a mirrored placement on the opposite back panel. Step 14. Back pockets are attached to the cutout by way of the liner. The liner is constructed from the same exterior sided fabric with the edges folded onto itself while encasing the pocket panel at the same width. Step 15. Align the pocket liner that encased the pocket fabric, which will in turn close off the raw edge of the bottom pocket cutout. Step 16. Pin the pieces together to ensure the correct placement on the cutout. It should look like a rectangular window with the matching fabric liner showing from underneath. Step 17. Reinforce the sides of the rectangular cutout by using a tighter zigzag stitch right on through the liner. This is to prevent the heavier use of the back pockets from future damage by taking things in and out of the pocket repeatedly. Step 18. Sew the receiving panel of the pocket that sits closest on the inside to the top rectangle of the pocket cutout, which simultaneously closes off the raw edge of the pocket cutout. Step 19. Fold the two outer edge faces of the pocket panels together in the following order: bottom, sides, then lastly the top. Pulling the pockets through the pocket cutout will allow access to sewing the bottom, sides, and then top. Step 20. Reset the pocket as it will sit on the inside of the back panel, then once again close off the raw edge by sewing the pocket fabrics that are now folded onto itself. Step 21. Optionally, you can craft a buttonhole through the liner section of the pocket by cutting a line slightly narrower than the intended button to use. A zigzag stitch along the buttonhole perimeter retains the fabric integrity, along with a locking straight stitch to finish. You can then attach a button behind the hole that you had just made. My hope is that these videos can debunk the reservations you've had about making cosplays or sewing items for yourself, and more, all with the theme of keeping costs low and time-saving techniques. Subscribe and support my channel for I've got a pocket full of sunshine, but let me know in the comments what you've got a pocket full of. Is it pocket stand as an escape tactic?